Members, it's the appointed time and we have a quorum. First item on the agenda, since the last meeting, no information papers were issued by the Secretariat. Item number 2, date of next meeting and items for discussion. Our next regular meeting on the 8th of June, which is a Monday, will be held here at 2:30 p.m. An item that would have been discussed today, that is update on the implementation of the subsidy scheme to extend fiber-based networks to villages in remote areas, would be replaced by the governance and management of RTHK. And as such, the discussion item on the subsidy scheme would be carried over to the next meeting. And the discussion items for the next meeting will be A, update on smart city development, B, measures and technology applications to promote e-government and IAM Smart, and C, the update on the implementation of the subsidy scheme. Any comments from members? If not, these will be our discussion items for the next meeting. The Deputy Chairman, Ms. Elizabeth Quad, proposed the discussion on the overall strategy and integration of resources of INT development in Hong Kong. We discussed the matter with the Commerce and Industry panel. They would be able to include this item at their regular meeting in June. I found it unnecessary to convene a joint panel since we would have to spend time on electing the chairman and deputy chairman. So members who are not members of the CI panel can also take part. Barring any objections, this is what we would do. Mrs. Regina Yip proposed discussing the development of data centers in Hong Kong, but the administration has yet to provide a response. So would the Secretariat please follow up with them? Visits to the Smart Government Innovation Lab, as well as the S3 Smart City Innovation Center. Due to the epidemic, the visits have been postponed. From now till June, we are unsure whether visits could be arranged, and the visits might not be possible at all. I'd like to consult members on whether we should attempt to arrange these visits. But if we have a number of discussion items to deal with, we might not have the time to make the visits. And the visits would take at least half a day. So any views from members? My view is that if these visits are not possible, then they would have to be cancelled. Alternatively, separate visits can be arranged. So we would cancel these visits. Item number 3, let's invite the administration in. Mr. Ronick Chan and Dr. Low Ai-Kwok. Can we arrange alternative or electronic visits in place of physical visits? I have a question I would like to ask, Chairman. we were discussing visits to the Smart Government Innovation Lab and S3 Smart City Innovation Center, but visits were not able to materialize due to the epidemic. So Mr. Ronick Chen asked whether digital or electronic visits or teleconferences could be arranged instead. Time might be rather limited today, so if members are interested in a visit, could it be arranged? We are more than happy to do so. We certainly welcome visits from members. If members are able to visit the facilities, that would be more than welcome. Otherwise, we also welcome different views. We wanted to make use of virtual reality to interact with members, but since time is limited, perhaps after the meeting, we can arrange virtual visits to our labs. Like working from home, this can save transit hours for members. So perhaps the Secretariat can get in touch with the Bureau to see whether virtual visits can be arranged to these two labs. Item number 3, Smart Government Innovation Lab. Would the Secretary walk us through a slideshow? Chairman, members, I'm happy to be attending the meeting of the panel on Information Technology and Broadcasting for the first time as Secretary for Innovation and Technology. By facilitating communication and cooperation, I would seek to enhance the application of innovation and technology. That way the public can feel the improvements to their lives. I hope for more exchanges with members in the coming future. Myself and my team from OGO would update members on the work progress of the Smart Government Innovation Lab. Since its setting up in April last year, it has encouraged and facilitated wide adoption of INT in government departments to improve public services. This shows the emphasis placed by the government on smart city development. I would first invite Mr. Tony Wong, Deputy Government Chief Information Officer, to walk us through a slideshow. After that, myself, Mr. Victor Lam from OGO, and our team are happy to answer questions. Thank you. Mr. Wong. I would use about 10 minutes to walk you through the focus of work of the Smart Lab. In April last year, the SAR government adopted a new pro-innovation government procurement policy. Under the policy, the use of marking schemes would be promoted, and the technical weighting in assessment would be raised to 60 to 70%, and departments should not include bidders' experience as a mandatory requirement for participating in procurement. And as a facilitator, the E&M Inno portal was set up by the EMSD as well as a Smart Government Innovation Lab, and this would promote the use of INT to enhance government services. The Smart Lab was set up last year, providing a platform to bridge the government and the sector, and the aim is to provide better public services through creativity and technology. And I would talk about the liaison work, matching, proof of concept, as well as adoption of technology. The Smart Lab worked with Cyberport and Hong Kong Science Park and held a total of 3 technical or technology fora. The sector was invited to share solutions and cases, and they would adopt INT to provide solutions. More than 170 participants took part, as well as more than 60 bureaus and departments. This year, we would expand our network. We would engage the Hong Kong Productivity Council, and we would also promote the work of our lab to more startups. We also set up a dedicated online portal to list out some of the challenges faced by corporates. We also invite the sector to offer technical proposals and solutions. We publish more than 50 business needs of bureaus and departments and receive over 200 IT solutions submitted by the industry. In light of the business needs of companies, the lab would actively help match appropriate solutions, and we have matched a total of 31 business needs with solutions, and in the process, 27 thematic workshops have been arranged, and we have arranged proof of concept for 15 solutions with potential. And we would test if they can meet the business needs of departments and if they are technically feasible. The lab will also provide the appropriate capital, venue, and technology to support the proof of concept tests. We are also promoting pilot testing for 8 projects. And the paper has listed the details of these proof of concept projects as well as relevant details. We would now talk about the proof of concept tests.
In conjunction with the LCSD, we have used some technical solutions to expand the use of robot, and we try to identify the input by robots and also by humans in order to ensure that there would not be misuse or abuse of public facilities, and also to promote the use of BEAM. The Smart Lab also installed an immersive installation so that we would use 3D and 4D immersive display system to simulate and display various trial technologies of smart city and to visualize BIM models and 3D maps to facilitate city management. So that would also ensure that there would not be any repeat of works and also mistakes being made. We can also use that for trial technologies and simulate virtual reality technologies. For example, the staff can also try to put in place fire extinction facilities and so on. So certain arrangements can also be made through such VR technology. And we can also promote the different sectors in using innovative methods. And we have also contacted 4 departments to see if we can also use blockchain technology in the provision of different services. And through working with the intellectual property development, so we try to make sure that well, for those who own patents and also trademarks, the information can also be uploaded onto a particular website so that the users would not have their privileged data being tampered with. And also in terms of the programming and so on, so blockchain information can also be used so that that would not be meddled with, so that for users they can also be involved, we could also help to trace the data input. And also through the blockchain technology for certain medications data or pharmaceutical products data that could also be uploaded. That would also improve the efficiency of management of such products. And also with the blockchain technology, because of its high transparency, companies' registries monitoring service can also be enhanced, so that it would also be able to provide more effective and efficient services to companies, so that they would also be able to monitor the storage of companies' information. At the same time, we have also set up an online security network, and over 160 public and private organizations have participated. And on that platform, we would also be able to use data analytics, and also we would also be able to get summaries and also propose labeling and so on. And that would also improve the efficiency of transfer of information. We have also made use of smart network and also real-time data. We can integrate both so that on the glass wall of conference rooms, we'll be able to provide weather data and also certain real data like date and time and so on. And we will also be able to improve the translucence of glass. That would also help protect the privacy of such meetings and so on. And coming up, one of the key tasks is to make use of robotics so that we will be able to further enhance our public services. For example, AI learning, and also smart agents, and also automation of robots and so on, so that for complicated workflow that could also be automated, and that would also help improve our efficiency. So other than enhancing the understanding and knowledge of government workers in this area, we have also introduced this guided tour by robots so that they'll be able to show or showcase the displays in the offices, and also our offices staff would also be able to they can also try out these latest technologies, and also through certain competitions of the use of robotics. For example, in the middle of this year, we'll be inviting different departments to take part in this contest, so as to enhance the concept and also certain proof of concept solutions in providing public services. We'll be providing assistance so that in 6 months, we'll be able to complete certain proof of concept. And then for the winning products, they can also help promote the relevant departments to start trial runs on these technologies. Well, because of the shortage of time, I don't think we have enough time to go through that tour guide or guided tours or walkthrough. Okay, I'll give 4 minutes to each of you to ask questions and get answers. But then we may overrun a little bit, and that would also eat into the time that we give for the next item. Lo Wai Kwok, Elizabeth Quat, Chen Chen Ying, Ma Fong Kwok, Eunice Yong, Regina Ip, and also, okay, so Lo Wai Kwok first. Thank you, Chairman. With regard to the smart labs work, we support that, but then I'd like to lament this. That is, when it comes to electronic services, we've been moving very slowly. Well, despite the epidemic, well, because of the epidemic, we have to work from home, and that would also highlight the shortcomings, because if you look at the traditional services, you will have to process most of the applications through paperwork, and they would also have to approve paper-based plans and so on. And as a result of that, in the light of the pandemic, many of these procedures have to be halted. So in the course of the epidemic, we can see all the shortcomings. And in the appendix, in Annex 1, we have also got some solutions with proof of concept arranged in other places, actually. You can see that they have been widely used already, and now we are still in the stage of proof of concept. For example, item 3, use a guiding robot to serve as a receptionist to receive visitors and guide visitors to tour around different showcases. I think it's been very common in other places. For example, in September last year, when we visited the Changjiang or the Yangtze River Delta, in fact, they've been using that very widely. And then item 10, use data analytics to optimize the design of route for delivery works to improve delivery efficiency. That's Hong Kong Post. Well, I think in other places that's been very mature already. And then item 11 and 12, that has to do with the Transport Department. Use video analytics to conduct automatic traffic surveys for pedestrian and vehicular traffic, and use video and data analytics to conduct traffic surveys for vehicles at road junctions and automatically monitor abnormal traffic conditions to support traffic management. We are still talking about proof of concept for these. I think it's a laughing stock. So during the same visit when we were in Hangzhou, and Jackie Ma was there in person to tell us how technology was used in managing traffic in Hangzhou, and it's been very widely used and it's been highly efficient, and the effect has been very good. And as you can see, the traffic flow in Hangzhou has been very efficiently managed, and if there is a traffic accident, then ambulances can arrive at the scene very expeditiously, and then the injured can also be taken to the hospital or the medical institutions very efficiently. So they are already doing this. So my question has been that, well, it's about whether or not you have the solutions when you need it. So you will have to ensure that the entire government team will be able to work together and speed up your pace in rolling out these initiatives. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Low, for your golden reminders. In fact, in the wake of the epidemic, we've been doing this for years, but then as Dr. Low just mentioned, indeed there are many areas that we can improve. And we will also be accumulating experience from the epidemic, and we will try our best to ensure that our different departments will be able to improve their workflow. And for the proof of concept that we are doing, that would precisely enable our startups to understand better the work of the government, and government departments would also be able to gain experience as to how these tools can help the government. So we will try our best to do this. Thank you. Okay, next, Chen Ying. Sorry, it should be Elizabeth Quat. Thank you, Chairman. I think members of the public have high hopes on the government's adopting of smart government approach, but then it would also take different departments' willingness to adopt innovation and technology to improve their services. Well, R&D is of course very important, but then what the public would like to see most is that there are some weak points or sore points that can be improved. So how are we able to do that? For example, I can give you several examples. For example, we are now having the epidemic, and many members of the public have many questions. For example, we haven't got we have the anti-epidemic fund version 1.0 and 2.0. And then we can make use of AI so that we can also make use of online tools to give the answers so that members of the public do not have to approach lawmakers, because we don't have answers for each and every question. Sometimes we will also have to find answers ourselves. You should be prepared so that you'll be able to answer those questions right away. And also on the cash handouts, how can that be done more quickly? And also coming up is summer, and it's the typhoon season, and we still remember Mangkhut, which hit us a couple of years ago. So how are we able to do a better job so that there would not be flooding and also fallen trees and so on? And also in the event of traffic incidents, for example, with fallen trees and also riots and so on, how can we notify the public very quickly as to where the danger might be, and they can avoid those locations and so on? So government services should be provided more expeditiously and effectively. All right, well, many civil servants had to work from home earlier on, and many services had to be suspended because some of those services cannot be provided without the civil servants working in the office. So for services that are provided to the public, apparently you are still not able to use the cloud services, and all the civil servants will have to go back to the office before they can provide the service. So how come we still have so many paper-based services? So these are the so-called sore points. For many years, members of the public have been complaining about that, and if you're not able to resolve these problems, if you're not able to offer solutions, then people will think that this government is not smart enough. We have not been doing what we should be doing. So as a government, we should identify those sore points, and then we can tell the public that we have a timetable so that we'll be able to provide solutions for all these problems. I think that's what a smart government should be doing. Yes, Bureau Director. Thank you. Precisely, that's our objective, because if you look back on the past few years, the administration has already put in place or invested more than $100 billion in order to ensure that innovation and technology can really go to where it's needed, so that we can revive the economy and improve people's livelihood, so that the public would also be able to feel how this can help enhance our position as a smart government. For example, during the typhoon season, where trees might be affected, what we should be doing is that, for example, the Tree Management Office of the Development Bureau and ourselves have been working together so that we can work on a site, so that we'll be monitoring the condition of different trees and so on, so improvements will be made. And just now you talk about providing convenience to the public in asking questions. In fact, Mr. Lam from the GCICO has been working on that. Can you briefly talk about that? Sorry, his mic is not on. Well, we have already put in place chatbots, and also the Efficiency Office has also been working on this. And in fact, these would be able to help members of the public to get answers. If they have any inquiries, they can also directly approach the chatbots, and then the chatbots will be able to provide an answer. And if they are not able to answer the questions, then they can refer the questions or inquiries to the relevant departments for answers. With regard to the mobile map, we have already approached some of the relevant institutions so that there would be this interactive map to help the public to identify or know the development of the epidemic. That has been very popular.
運算方面呢，其實我哋
In terms of cloud computing, we will roll out the IM Smart platform and online, and forms can be filled online. And by next year, most forms could be filled electronically. Mr. Ronnie Chan, we acknowledge the efforts of OGO, and the Smart Government Innovation Lab is certainly a good start. I completely agree with Dr. Loy Kwok and Ms. Elizabeth Kwok for the 15 proof of concept projects. They are yet to achieve any breakthroughs. For instance, the renewal of licenses at the Transport Department, something should be done about it. You said 60 projects have been matched by the E&M Inno portal and 31 projects by the Smart Lab. Does it mean contracts have been signed with startups? So do these 91 matched projects come with any contracts? And the government has also set up an industry liaison office at Cyberport to showcase and display technologies that have been successfully or tested by BDs. As you nurture talent, you should allow as many people as possible to witness such technologies. Would the liaison office be open to the academia and not just the trade? We would strive to liaise with the trade. Among the 91 projects, most are taken up by startups, and we want to encourage startups to participate in the government's INT exercises. Most contracts were secured by startups. Some pilot projects do not require contracts to be signed, and this would depend on the needs of the actual bureaus and departments. After the POC stage, there would be the actual application, and in some POC projects, costs would be incurred, and in those cases, we would reimburse the startups. For example, the use of LiDAR to detect the speeds of vehicles. We spent $170,000 on the POC project. These projects are indeed very useful because very often departments would want to see the results before they want to invest substantially. In some projects, tenders have been issued. For example, for blockchain-related projects, contractors were secured through tendering, and the costs were relatively higher. Some cost $700,000, and one of the projects cost $1 million. And these projects were secured through tendering. We will allow more startups to take part going forward. Would the center be open to the sector? More than 20 industry bodies and overseas bodies have visited our lab. Members of the public and students also made visits to the lab, so we are open to everyone. I would draw the line here. Ma Feng Kwok. Thank you, Chairman. In the past year, the Smart Lab matched or published more than 50 business needs, and the lab has matched 31 business needs with solutions. For the rest, why hasn't proof of concept been arranged? I wonder how the government will follow up on these. As for the application of blockchain technology, according to the paper, they would be applied by different departments, or 4 different departments, or the Intellectual Property Department, Department of Health, EPD, and Companies Registry. Would other departments also apply or adopt blockchain technology? For some government departments, workshops were completed, so trial application would be arranged. For some government departments, they did not find the solutions appropriate, so they require alternative solutions. We would discuss with these departments when we proceed to the proof of concept for those alternative solutions. Among the 31 projects, POC has started for some, and for others, they would be arranged very soon. The number of projects is now at 31. We will discuss with more government departments to arrange POC and pilot testing. As for blockchain technology, It has been applied to 4 different projects for pilot implementation. We convened a conference earlier for participation by different departments. 20 to 30 departments took part in that conference, which was held at Cyberport. We are liaising with different government departments. I hope they would be encouraged by the fact that 4 departments have already adopted blockchain technology, and hopefully they can start to see the benefits of blockchain. We are yet to have a solid target, but we believe that blockchain can help improve the workflow and services of different departments. You talked about 50 government departments, and I believe your work will continue. In terms of new business needs or BDs with new business needs, would you continue to help conduct matching? Different government departments can improve efficiency by adopting technology, and how technology or services can be sustained through the use of technology. Through the Smart Lab and the E&M InnoPortal, we will continue to identify technologies that can be provided by startups, and we acknowledge that technologies are already available on the market to support our needs. Through the remote business support scheme, we would help improve the quality or the standards of the sector. Ms. Eunice Yong, I feel really angry having read the paper. What is the actual objective of a smart government? Are you just looking to assign extra scores to different departments, and the department with the highest score would be the winner? The paper never explained how technology would help the society or the public. In Annex 1, the first project is the use of RFID to manage valuable audiovisual equipment and keep track of all equipment movement. I wonder whether the Information Services Department possesses such or expensive equipment. This is not justified. And project number 6, smart film to display real-time data such as date, time, and weather information. What is its point? All offices are air-conditioned. Why would this be a proof of concept solution? They made it sound like this is a whole new discovery or invention. You are using LiDAR to estimate the average journey time of vehicles. This is something you can see or check with the naked eye. Do these amount to innovation in the year 2020? Thank you. The civil service of the Hong Kong SAR government has always been satisfactory, but to go one step further, we need technology. With our growing population and manpower constraints, we must embrace a wider use of technology. In terms of the use of RFID technology, we can record the locations of different documents, and with RFID, we can detect the locations and whereabouts of our archives. So in terms of improving our services under limited staff force, well, this might not be cutting-edge technology, but like I always say, the point of technology is to provide convenience and promote the economy. And that's why we are not just focusing on cutting-edge technology. We must adopt technologies already available in order to vacate our manpower so that we can provide even better services. This is called the Smart Government Innovation Lab. So there is the element of innovation, and it is a laboratory. So the expectations of myself and the government is to come up with something cutting edge in order to improve livelihood and boost the economy. And project number 9, the use of anti-bot technology, which integrates AI and machine learning to distinguish human inputs from robot-generated inputs. So for inputs made by robots, why wasn't anyone ever arrested? In the past, the LCSD would use anti-bot solutions to trace whether any bookings were made with bots or to book venues. In the past, that wasn't possible. So subsequently, they reached out to us and we identified a solution. We are now able to intercept such bots. And that means the public can find it easier to book venues online. As to whether this would lead to arrests, this is something to be dealt with by LCSD. Mrs. Regina Yip, Chairman. The Innovation Lab was set up not long ago, so we should not be too harsh on them. But like many members pointed out, the proof of concept projects listed in Annex 1 are all secondary in nature. The government should conduct more big data analytics, much like the Cambridge Analytics company in the UK and other companies. They would track the topics the public are concerned about.
If you had known that the public were most concerned about the shortage or lack of surgical masks, then you would have been able to do a better job in terms of the provision of masks. So would you be asking the GCI CEO or the Smart Lab to do more such projects? I think that would be even more effective than opinion polls, because big data analytics would be more effective because, for example, if I don't like Professor or Dr. Chong, I would not be answering his calls. But then if you can do more big data analytics, then that would help the government with better understanding of the public, and then they would know how many people will be joining the march and how many people will be casting their votes and so on. And all you need to do is to provide technical support to the relevant departments. Yes, Mrs. Yip, when you refer to these, this is precisely what we've been doing. We would like to listen to the public, and we would also try our best to understand their aspirations. And then for details, I can defer to the GCICO. Yes, you're referring to the big data infrastructure, and we are constructing that. And in September, would be launching or rolling out that platform, and that would also include data analytics, so that we will help different departments to analyze the views of the public and what they are concerned about on different topics, so that they'll be able to make prompt response to those. And you also talk about chatbots technology. In fact, that would also make use of big data analytics, because that would also help us to ensure that the answers to be given by the robots would be more accurate. In fact, big data analytics would also require a lot of training for civil servants. But how about the construction of the infrastructure? All right, you have many experts. So is it done through outsourcing or what? Yes, we adopt different approaches. So it's like our cloud platform. So we are building that in parallel so that for the big data analytics platform, that would also make better use of our cloud platform, and we will then be able to do a better job. Well, for big data analytics platform, we would not just be using our in-house resources. We would also be tendering that out so that different enterprises outside can also take part. Well, hopefully with the platform available, you can analyze the data. You can also share that with the public, because the entire community would also like to know which age groups and what backgrounds would be thinking about what. So I think that's needed. Next, UC Wing. Thank you, Chairman. Well, smart government and also the smart lab. Well, as the name suggests, it should provide or ensure that the SL government is a smart government, and at the same time, it would also be able to offer innovative solutions and implement innovation projects. Well, I can see that you've only been established for a year or so, but then when it comes to smart government, I think there is a shortage. Well, given the fact that you'd like to develop yourself into a smart government, you should have the near, medium, and long-term solution. But then you're only looking at the microscopic areas without having the macroscopic picture. That's what many members have said. All right, you'll be giving advice to individual departments, and then you would just act as a middleman to matchmake the service providers and also the individual departments, and then you just claim results and credits. I think these are just patchy work. So I think in terms of your positioning, I think you're serving as if you were the audit commission. You should be looking at individual departments' work and see to what extent they are lagging behind the smart government, so that you can make counter suggestions to them instead of leaving it to them to ask you for help. Well, as a smart government, you should not be doing patchy work. You should not just be adopting a band-aid approach. You should be more proactive. You should promote the work of a smart government and also the innovation lab. You should not be providing support to the innovation lab. You should move even faster and go further. And also in terms of the scrutiny process, well, because of the epidemic, many civil servants have to work from home, and a lot of the things cannot be done because they have everything in the office. For example, if you want to renew your license, there has been a delay by 2 months, and as a result, some enterprises have not been able to get the subsidies. If you are able to work from home, then and if you're able to approve those applications from home, then that would be a lot easier, because you should be able to find out at which stage that application is being processed. So when it comes to online applications, can that be dealt with online? So can you look into that? And also for raw image projects, for example, our museums and so on, well, you should have robots doing the tour guide work. So you can come up with a set of standards, and then you can just tender that out, and then you can develop the hardware and software. So the guiding robots should not be difficult to do. So you might claim that you've been doing that. Still, we do not feel that you've been doing a very effective work. So is it that you've tried that out, but then the department has been reluctant in using them? No. Well, by smart government, so that's one of the 6 areas of a smart city. In fact, we have a very comprehensive roadmap, so that would be able to move towards that target and then make it a success. So the chief executive has set up a steering committee working with all the bureau directors and senior officials so that we can promote the implementation of a smart city. And then the Innovation Lab is just one of the tools. Yes, thanks to your advice, we will definitely be working very hard. Well, the lab has been able to roll it out to all departments, and in accordance with the Smart City Roadmap, we'll be implementing them step by step. Next, Chen Hangpan, last one to ask questions, please. Yes, with regard to the government's Smart Government Innovation Lab, I do have high hopes on it. Yes, it was set up in 2014, and they haven't got many major projects. I think that might have to do with the long-standing convention of the departments, because the view is that if you do less, then you make fewer mistakes. And if you try something new, and if there are mistakes, then you'll be criticized. And if you adopt certain technology, and if the public feel that that has not been very effective, then that would give rise to a lot of criticisms and queries. But then I hope that you can continue with your efforts so that more departments would be willing to move out of their comfort zones. If there is no one who is willing to try this out, then whatever R&D we've been doing, it would be wasted. What's important is that in the past, we might have many inventions that might have been criticized by people. Still, that should not stand in the way of trying that out with the Innovation Lab. So I hope that the Smart Lab can be more proactive and positive in identifying such products, and then they should do a matchmaker's job by matching the technologies with the departments. For example, Transport Department, well, in the license renewal system, it's been very backward. And very often, people will have to queue up in their office to renew their licenses. And even for things that could have been done online, they are also reluctant to do it. So I think these are measures that would convenience the public. You should encourage them more proactively. Or else, the departments some departments might be willing to do it, but then you're just doing that in-house. You might be able to improve the internal efficiency, but then the public might not be able to feel it. They might not be able to see how technology has helped them, and they might have the view that you're doing something that has nothing to do with them. So I hope that the Smart Lab can roll out projects that would be more relevant to the public. And second, the sector and government departments should be given more encouragement or more confidence so that they can use these technologies more readily. And the IT sector and the government should be given more time and space so that they can try to walk out of their comfort zone, things that they are used to, so that, well, even if the results of the trial might not be very satisfactory, we should be more accommodating. We should not be too critical, or else all officials will be very conservative. So coming up, well, after the establishment of the Smart Lab in April 2019, what are the key projects or key tasks so that the public will have a better understanding and will have the view that the lab will genuinely be able to help them? Okay, thank you, Mr. Chen, for your encouragement. Indeed, that's the way we've been working on this. Yes, we are trying things out so that we can further enhance our efficiency and effectiveness. We have to have the confidence and buy-in from our colleagues. So other than what the Smart Lab will be doing, I think the most important thing is, we're going to introduce the digital ID card. In doing that, that would provide a lot of convenience to the public in their daily living and so on. Okay, so you'll give us more details later. Okay, a lot of views have been expressed about the solutions and also the work of the Innovation Lab. So please step up your efforts. And if we can have an online exchange forum or program, we can do further. Okay, next item, item 4, is about the governance and management of RTHK and our Secretariat. during the past week or so, up until this morning and the past weekend, we have received 1,200 comments, and many of them are identical, but then some of them are different, or they might have been written by the individuals. So in any case, I've told the Secretary that if many of them are identical, then it would cost too much efforts to upload everything onto our website. So all we need to do is to upload one samples. And then for those that are different, then those can also be uploaded onto our website for reference. So I'd like to welcome the Bureau Director and also the Director for Broadcasting and his team. So I'll give some time to the Bureau Director or the Director for Broadcasting to say a few words. So please be brief, because I'm sure many members have questions. Yes, Bureau Director. Yes, thank you. Well, I think this has been requested by members last time. We've also prepared a paper, because at the last meeting, we just broadly talk about things relating to RTHK, and we believe that there are some concerns. For example, what has to do with this council was the audit report and the progress of implementing the recommendations and so on. Some have been done and others not. And then recently, there have also been concerns about RTHK programs and the situation that they are facing. And thirdly, where there is a policy change that has given rise to a lot of public concerns. So it's about the use of the spectrum and so on. So I've got the information here. So I don't think I need to go over them. So we'll take questions, okay? So 4 minutes each. We have already got a dozen or so members who are in the queue. I'll read out the names first. Alvin Yang, Claudia Mo, Ted Hui, Elizabeth Kwok, Ma Fong Kwok, Eunice Yong, Chen Hangfen, Regina Ip, Dennis Kwok, and then Wu Chi Wei. Sorry. Please add his name too. Wong Ting Kwong too. So you speak after Alvin Young. Okay, Alvin Young. Thank you, Chairman. First of all, well, I'd like to express my admiration to Mr. Leung Ka-wing, because you issued a letter on the 6th of this month, and you said that RTHK doesn't have any enemy as a public service broadcaster. That's the attitude of such a broadcaster, whether it's a political stance and so on, and nobody should be the enemy of RTHK. I think that's the right attitude.
Paragraphs 22 to 24 of the paper accuse the RTHK programs of breaching the RTHK producers guidelines and other guidelines. Paragraph 3.2 of the guidelines pointed out that if the relevant topic is not explored in order to not upset anyone, would amount to a lack of effort. And that means if RTHK takes out self-censorship, that would amount to a true dereliction of duty. Paragraph 24 said the RTHK are requested to promptly respond in a positive and responsible manner, including a review of its program editorial and production mechanism, with a view to ensuring that the standards are in compliance with the Charter, the CA's relevant codes of practice, and RTHK's producers' guidelines. The Charter and guidelines are very clear. They have been complied with down the years. What does the government expect? Do you wish to interpret the guidelines in your own accord, or do you want to build something on top of the guidelines? I believe Mr. Young was expressing his personal opinion because what he said lacked context, so I do not really get what he was talking about. In recent times, there have been views from both sides, from different parties. Some Hong Kong people love RTHK, but indeed, in recent years, there have been different views, including negative views and criticisms. The government's stance is very clear. For this year alone, I spoke on at least 4 different occasions. The government stance on RTHK, including the 18th of February. I asked the RTHK to comply with the Charter. On the 17th of March, I clearly explained the RTHK's role and relevant constraints. And on the 2nd of April, another RTHK program breached the One China principle. And on the 7th of March, at the Finance Committee special meeting, I reiterated those principles, and they are repeated again in the document. And the 20th of April, we issued a press release on the Communication Authority's decision. Our stance includes both principles and justifications on the government's statements, and all these have been communicated clearly to the RTHK. So I hope our discussions would be based on the actual context. I'm focusing on those 4 paragraphs. Secretary, can you guarantee that the guidelines or codes of practice would not be updated or amended? The charter was signed between the government, RTHK, and the CA, and under its editorial independence, the RTHK can draw up their own programs, and this is very clear in the charter. Mr. Wong Ting Kwang, thank you. The RTHK charter stipulates that the Director of Broadcasting is to hold ultimate editorial responsibility, and in terms of, and the director must be held responsible in terms of the editorial content. The RTHK's programs was deemed to have contravened the guidelines by the CA. Would the relevant civil servants be subject to sanctions? If this amounts to negligence, would the relevant civil servants be sanctioned, and which unit or responsible would be responsible? Director, thank you. Mr. Wong said that RTHK was subject to multiple decisions by the Communications Authority. When subject to decisions by the CA, we would follow up seriously on the relevant issues. We would consider the professional standards, since we are a government department. We must consider relevant civil service regulations and provisions. And we would also look at the severity of the issues. And most recent episodes involved minor breaches, but even for minor breaches, we would review on our deficiencies. We would review the relevant programs and staff, including the overall mechanism. The RTHK operates 6 radio channels, 2 TV channels, and there are different producers for different programs, and the styles are different. We would exercise our professional judgment as well as the civil service regulations and guidelines. We would deal with relevant staff as appropriate, and this would be a responsible approach. I hope I have addressed your question. Director, on the production of relevant programs, even if they were deemed to be contraventions by the CA, most of them were minor breaches. That means a small number of allegations involve major breaches. So for those cases, how were they dealt with? We never heard anything about it. For the serious breaches, did you disclose your investigation outcome, and how would the staff members be dealt with? Director, the serious breach involved a warning, and it was of a serious nature. Before the CA received complaints on the second day after the program was broadcast, the program was removed and a holistic review was conducted, and appropriate arrangements were taken out on the staff involved. Since this involves the privacy of certain staff members, we cannot disclose the details here. As Director of Broadcasting, I sincerely apologize to individuals who felt offended. Ms. Claudia Mo, thank you. This morning, I heard on RTHK News that Carrie Lam received an exclusive interview from Ta Kung Pao, which was laughable. She didn't even dare receive an interview on TVB. You can see that the government only wants mouthpieces, and last night our colleague Roy Kwong was subject to police brutality in Mongkok, and the RTHK was the first to upload relevant footage. So we are fortunate that Hong Kong has RTHK. Since the Tong Chi Hua era, you have tried to target RTHK because they do not operate as a government mouthpiece. They function as a genuine public service broadcaster. That's why they have been targeted. You talked about the overall impression of the program, The Pulse. It was against one country, two systems, but you could not pinpoint the specifics. So if you accuse someone of being a thief, and that person was asked what makes him a thief, and you would say this is based on the overall impression. For the red media, and back in April, Mr. Shah from the Liaison Office said action should be taken on certain RTHK programs. So what was the action required, and how is it carried out? Well, like Mr. Young, I understand different members would have different views on RTHK's programs, and the same goes for the public. I believe the RTHK and CDB have been invited here. Well, from 18th of February to the 20th of April, the CDB has stated clearly its stance based on the RTHK Charter. Well, he has been repeating himself. Ms. Mo talked about the Pulse, and it was a program broadcast on the 20th of March, and on the 2nd of April, I explained clearly the stance on the program. The specifics or details of the program was up to the broadcaster. Please do not have a dialogue among yourselves. He failed to pinpoint the statements that breach one country, two systems. If my replies in the past were not clear enough, I'm happy to repeat it once again. But I hope I would be given the chance to talk. At the program on the 20th of March, we felt the program in itself was against the one country principle due to the Taiwan-related content. And on the 28th of March, there was another program involving Taiwan where the RTHK received similar complaints. So these two episodes led to concerns that the one country principle must be breached, and this is something I want to convey clearly because this involves the constitutional duty of the RTHK. Whenever there are different views or controversies on RTHK's programs, we would have a discussion. Every time we would quote from the RTHK charter and the RTHK's issues as a public broadcaster and government department. So I hope we would put everything in context. Are you accepting or denying that Mr. Shah ordered that something be done on RTHK? I'm happy to answer this question. I hope members would not put words in my mouth. The CDB is responsible for public broadcasting, and this is work to the SAR government and CDB must deal with, and work must be conducted according or based on the charter. For speculative questions, I hope my words would not be twisted.
Okay, please allow the Bureau Director to answer the question, and then members can express their views later. But then he's like playing the recording machine. Okay, next, Ted Hui. Thank you, Chairman. Well, in a government structure, very often, it's the head of the department who will be supporting the work of the department. So it's like Carrie Lam. So in the issue of distribution of surgical masks, she said that our colleagues have been doing their best. But then in this case, the CEDB has never praised the RTHK. They are there to criticize RTHK. So it's like headliner. All right, we have 5 times more praises than criticism, and still they criticize the bureau criticized it, and the Pulse just asked a question, and then they try to escalate it, alleging that they have breached the one country principle, and then there's also a complaint, and then you said that Pentaprison was not telling the truth, and they've also won a lot of awards, and RTHK got 2 major prizes and also some medals of excellence and so on. So they have already won a lot of prizes, and yet you never praise them. So is it that for the liaison office, only when they praise it, you would be prepared to stand behind them? So whenever there are criticisms, when it comes to liberal studies and so on. So, and also when it comes to disqualifying pan-democrats, and now you're trying to disqualify RTHK. So my question for Edward Yao is, when it comes to your policy, is it that you're trying to act against and criticize RTHK, and you try to attack them and you try to deprive them of the resources, and you would just be criticizing them, and you would also try to say that there are complaints against them, and all you're trying to do is to destroy RTHK. Is that what you're trying to do? Well, you've made a lot of allegations. They cannot be further from the truth. And also, at the same time, some of the justifiable issues, some of the issues that could have been discussed very clearly and rationally have been sidestepped. I've already reiterated the principles, and every time when the Bureau issues a statement, all we want to do was to have a rational discussion. Also, you refer to the pulse. I've already explained that on different occasions. That's not the way I try to put it to him. My question is, why is it that there is only criticism without any praises? So can you tell us what are the strengths of RTHK? Well, I remember during the past couple of years when I came to this council, including the annual budget debate, I've said that RTHK has its unique roles. For example, when it comes to serving the ethnic minority, because you cannot expect other public broadcasters, they've been able to reach out to those groups. So they've been doing a remarkable job. But then at the same time, when it's not doing the right thing, we should also criticize it, in particular when they are breaching the charter. And also, some members also referred to some complaints, and I'm sure you would agree that as a government department, we would always face both criticisms and commendations. And if you try to suppress the other side by saying that there are more praises or commendations, does it mean that so long as there are commendations, you don't have to pay attention to complaints? I remember in about March, I think in April, I already said this. Well, I understand that many people might favor some RTHK programs. I agree. But then there are some complaints that have to be dealt with. In particular, when they are from statutory bodies, if we are applying the same yardstick, we have to respect the mechanism, and that's what's stated in the charter. So when we discuss it, we will have to follow what is stated in the charter, and as some members have said, we will have to apply this charter, and we will have to apply this across the board. So do you continue to support the work of RTHK and also their mission in public service broadcasting? Yes, we have been urging them to act in accordance with the charter in discharging its responsibilities and also play its function. Next, Ma Fong Kwok. Yes, I'm concerned about the rating of RTHK because according to the audit report, 31 and 31A, the rating in average is less than 0.1%. This is really very low. That's why earlier on, when we discussed the debate, the budget, I wrote to the government and also RTHK. Well, we would have to look at individual TV channels, the actual cost for running the channel, but then I did not get an answer. So here, I'd like to ask this question. Because after all, we are using public money, and I think RTHK would also have to ensure that there is value for money. In fact, I supported RTHK in particular shortly after the reunification. There were many programs which would recall our reminiscence. In fact, I praised them on many occasions. So many programs were remarkable. But then recently, when you look at their rating, and also when there are public discussion forums and so on, they've been subjected to a lot of criticisms and complaints. So all these show that what's the way forward for RTHK? We need to consider that. Well, in particular, now that they have their own channels and yet the rating has been very low, well, in the past, their programs could be shown in other non-government channels and so on. So they would be able to get a certain level of viewership. So how are they going to deal with this, with the very low ratings? And it's been suggested that, when you conduct this survey, you should also take into account cross-media viewership. But then RTHK has not been able to do it. So how are you able to justify the value of your very existence? So how do you evaluate your social value? Well, I defer to the permanent secretary because that's part of the recommendations of the audit report. So I'll defer to the permanent secretary before I ask the director to answer the questions. Yes, there have been a lot of discussions on the issue of RTHK. Very often, they would ignore the requirement of the audit report because the audit reporter asked that they would also collect data about viewership so that they would be able to position themselves and also set their targets. So first is about the rating, and the audit report's observation is that well, the average rating is only 0.1%. So on average, only 6,400 people were viewing the programs. We believe that rating is also very important because it's been widely admitted by the broadcasting sector. So that's the standards in assessing whether or not a program is popular or not. And there are also some surveys. So out of 4 million people watching TV, they spend an average of about 4 hours every day on watching TV programs and at different time slots and so on. For example, during the prime slots, RTHK's programs have been shown. And then as you can see, at the special FC meetings, they have not been able to answer many members' questions. That's why we have been urging RTHK to collect such data on viewership and also ratings. It's not that difficult to collect such data. Some organizations are able to provide very detailed breakdowns. So we've been asking RTHK to do that at the next controlling officer's report next year. And also for cross-media data, we have also noticed that, well, please be brief, because many people are in the queue. We don't have enough time. Well, you will have to give them time to answer the question because out of the 6 minutes just now, yes, there are too many people on the queue. And next is about the click rate online. And RTHK's data have not been very comprehensive. And the director has been referring to the click rate for 2 programs. Well, RTHK doesn't have 2 programs only. They have several dozen programs. And if you look at the data, if you look at the 14-month data, so when we look at RTHK's programs and their popularity, how many people are watching the programs and so on. So we are not able to see very detailed breakdowns for individual programs. That's why we hope that RTHK would be able to look at the recommendation of the audit report so that at different time slots, so what is the viewership and also the awareness level, and also certain targets and indicators so that we'll be able to see their standards and also whether or not they'll be able to make improvements within a specified period of time. Okay? Director, you will have to wait for your turn after another member has asked questions. I'll have to draw a line because there are over a dozen members. So we only have about 35 minutes left. So if we allow each member to have 4 minutes, we won't have enough time. So I have to control the time better. And then if we don't have enough time, the last member in the queue might not be able to ask questions at all because we have to hand over the conference room to another meeting by 4:30. Okay, 4 minutes. Elizabeth Quat. Thank you, Chairman. Well, in LegCo, we have already referred to RTHK on many occasions. There have been many complaints, and then the government's response is that there are more praises than criticisms. That's why they have not been dealing with that. Recently, the situation has got worse. Well, we can see that the Pulse, as the Bureau Director said, that is against the one country to one country principle, and also for pentaprism, well, actually is spreading hatred and is dividing the community. I think these are very serious matters, and yet the way you dealt with that was that you just dealt with that very uncritically or casually, but then we did not see any sincerity in your remarks because in your public letter or open letter earlier on, you're actually writing to your staff. You're not apologizing to the general community. So we simply do not accept that. And the director also said that for serious matters, you had been dealing with them. But then we could just see that you had been dealing with them very lightly, and you're still there. And you said that the deputy director would have to be responsible. So how is he being responsible for that? And what about the staff? you said that, okay, so the program has been taken off shelf, and then for the staff's name, because of privacy, you cannot disclose the details and so on. So what have you done? So have you punished them, and what kind of punishment has been meted out? We don't know. We have no idea at all. So we admit that RTHK has been doing a remarkable job in many programs, but then there are black sheep, and they are spreading hatred, and they are distorting the truth, and many people are not happy. So you will have to respect them. If you allow that to continue, then RTHK will no longer enjoy any credibility, and then the public will become more and more angry. Also recently in Hong Kong Connection, well, that has been shown in the Apple platform, so we can't even see the logo of RTHK. So are you producing programs for Apple Daily? And then how do you decide which platforms will be allowed to show your programs? So can you explain that? So should we ask the director to respond to that? You refer to a particular website showing the Hong Kong Connection. Well, they bought our copyright, and that's why they are allowed to show our program. So what about the logo? It's not even shown there. So are you producing the program just for them? So why is it that you have only sold them to Apple Daily? You will have to give us a clear statement, or else you will have to give us a written reply, because we followed all the procedures. Because if anybody would like to buy RTHK programs copyright, they can do so. Okay? Other questions? Well, the other question is about RTHK. We are facing the entire community. We serve the entire community. We are used to listening and accepting criticisms with modesty. So we have already got used to that. Just now, Ms. Quat referred to certain things. For example, you said that after the incident, we immediately did a lot of work to deal with that. You're actually wasting our time. So can the Bureau Director tell us, how did the Director act in a responsible manner? So how did he answer to the criticisms of the public? Well, he quoted something. That is recently the CA criticized the Pentaprism program, and there was a serious warning. And that was the ruling by the CA. And in fact, the CEDB asked RTHK to do 4 things. First, did they accept the ruling by the CA? Second, if they accepted the criticism, then would they apologize? And thirdly, would somebody be responsible? And fourthly, how they would follow up on that? So that's what we have been dealing with them.
Basically, that answer was good as nothing. So if there's any further information, please provide them in writing. Please tell the public how you would deal with them. Would you offer a response now? If you wish, you can offer a brief response. I said it very clearly. The decision of the CA was impartial and statutory in nature. Do you know how you would deal with those 4 aspects already? The RTHA must provide a positive response. The Director of Broadcasting offered an answer already, and I believe certain things have been done and certain things will be done, especially the final point of the 4. Mr. Ronnie Chan, thank you. We should be discussing the audit report number 71. It was published a long time ago. And in terms of program quality and awareness, a system should be created. I wonder whether the Secretary and Director can tell us when this would be completed, instead of just saying that there is no progress. And Annex 3 lists out the relevant provisions of the generic code of practice on TV program standards. And a licensee should not include in its program any material that is misleading. These are guidelines on television programs, but no sanctions or penalties have been mentioned. Would you apologize to affected individuals or bodies? And on top of your recent apology, did the RTHK offer other apologies or clarifications on their programs? For speakers or guests who make impartial judgments, would there be a mechanism to put them on a monitoring list before they would be allowed to feature again? Director, please answer the second question first. How would you deal with the guests? If a program proves to be problematic, we would deal with the issue immediately instead of monitor the situation over a longer period. As for the so-called sanctions or penalties, as a government department, we have always complied with different guidelines and regulations. Permanent Secretary, with regards to the audit report, we acknowledge that the report was published more than 1.5 years ago. Some of the work have been completed, but there are still outstanding items or issues. And we talked about the viewership, appreciation index, and relevant surveys. They are still ongoing. And at the special committee or finance committee special meeting, we have said that we would urge the RTHK to tackle these issues. In terms of viewership, many private organizations are able to provide the ratings in detail, so it's all about commitment. In the coming months, we would urge the RTHK to collect data on satisfaction rates, appreciation index, etc. For guests deemed to be partial, you would deal with them immediately. So what kind of treatment would be conducted? They would not be invited again. Ms. Eunice Yong. First, I declare that I'm a member of the public who I'm the counsel of a citizen who filed a private lawsuit against Mr. Leung Ka-wing. The Communications Authority issued a serious warning already. The director said he would assume responsibility. The CDB provides oversight on the RTHA. You are also the supervising body. If you do not assume the responsibility, who would provide the oversight? The director offered an apology. It wasn't a true apology. There was no target. There was no substance. Would you accept this apology? The public would not accept it. And the director is obviously alleged of misconduct in public office. So how would you deal with the situation? Mr. Ted Hui, she said that there are current proceedings. A private lawsuit was filed according to Rule 41(2). Would the chairman offer a judgment? I did not disclose any information or the nature of the lawsuit. The lawsuit is about the same incident. Can you rephrase your question? All right, let me rephrase it. I would follow up on what other members said already. Would the Bureau accept this apology made by the director? If not, why? How would you deal with it? Well, this is a question for the Bureau, not the director. This would affect the lawsuit. Members asked similar questions before, so Secretary, without jeopardizing the course of justice, you can choose to address the question. Like I said in my earlier reply, the CA is a statutory body, and under the Broadcasting Ordinance, the CA would apply the same standards on all broadcasters subject to complaints. It was an agreement signed by 3 parties, and the LTHK accept to be bound by the LTHK Charter. So in the face of such serious warnings, the broadcaster and CTV must respond. First of all, we would consult whether they accept the allegation or the decision by the CA. So that was the first question asked by the CTV. Some broadcasters might be subject to penalties if the sanctions are serious. I do not wish to second guess, but the sanctions are not in the form of a fine or suspension or license, and whether they would apologize. And if there is any negligence, as editor-in-chief, the director must assume responsibility. If this is an isolated incident, how would it be dealt with? If this is an editorial or governance decision, then the treatment might be different. So the LTHA must review the relevant situation. 7 members are waiting to speak. Since we would have to finish by 4:30, I hope members would be concise. Mr. Champan, followed by Mrs. Regina Yip. Thank you. According to the LTHA, they should provide a platform for different people to voice their views freely. But this does not mean the program hosts should use this as a platform to voice their political views. The LTHA's mission is to facilitate understanding of one country, 2 systems and their sense of identity. Some LTHA programs quoted wrong information, and there is major conflicts of interest in the program hosts. Some program participants have very clear political views, and they are asking certain people to go to hell on their social media platform, and some people are talking about Hong Kong independence. If the mission of LTHK is to promote one country, 2 systems and sense of national identity, yet they are using these hosts and actors for certain program roles, can the RTHA still fulfill the mission? We hope the director would take responsibility. I have no personal relations with Mr. Leung, but there were rumors recently that Mr. Leung Ka-wing holds foreign citizenship. Can he disclose the information here? Well, that is up to him. Secretary or Director, would you choose to answer this question? Secretary? The program decisions, including who to invite, the editorial decisions are the decisions of the editor-in-chief, and the CDB is not involved in this. If there are discussions about the CA's decisions, well, I would defer to the director on Mr. Chan's question. Can you confirm whether RTHA has this mission? If there is a conflict of roles, can the CDB or CA take any action? Can they be more proactive? Paragraph 4 of the Charter has listed the mission of the RTHA. They must promote citizenship and civic society, as well as the concept of one country, two systems. These cannot be breached. In the cases I quoted, if there are conflicts of principle, then the stance must be made very clear. But for matters within the editorial independence, that would be up to the RTHA. Director, can you disclose whether you want to answer this question? I hold U.S. citizenship, and this is something declared when I was recruited and the government knew about it. Mrs. Regina Yip, I think the citizenship of the director is not important. If under the big market principle, then well, if the private market would carry out the function of mocking or criticizing the government, this is not something that the RTHA need to do. As a public service broadcaster, they have a mission, and the Charter states clearly that you must promote the concepts of one country, two systems, and to engender a sense of citizenship and national identity. So back to the program, The Pulse. Why did the reporter constantly ask the WHO whether Taiwan can become a member?
Because Taiwan is not a sovereign state, and the WHO cannot allow non-sovereign states to join. Let's say if that happens in Spain, if a state radio continuously or persistently asks WHO whether or not Catalonia can become a member. Well, I'm not asking you to punish her because she's a very young reporter and I don't know her nationality. So I'd just like to ask the director. So have you talked to your staff or subordinates as to the one country system or principle, and that the way she put the question to the interviewee is not right, because WHO would not allow non-state party to join. So have you constantly talked to your staff? This is a very important broadcasting policy, and your mission is to implement or engender a sense of one country to your staff. So have you done that? Well, let me answer the question. In fact, we have reviewed that very carefully and seriously, because the intention, the whole purpose of that program is not to breach the one country principle. And in conducting the review, we found out that well, to different people, a very short question could mean different things. So I repeatedly said it's about the one country principle. It must not be breached. So I repeatedly said, because that program was about the epidemic. But then this young female reporter kept asking whether or not Taiwan could join the WHO. So what's the motive behind that? Well, we have discussed that. So was it because of she was naive or what? Well, when we are working in the media, sometimes the effect might be out of our expectations. We might not have expected people to adopt this kind of perspective because the program was on the pandemic situation in different places. That's why we reflected on ourselves very deeply. So I've repeatedly talked to her about this and I was very long-winded because the staff then said that, okay, Director, you've been talking about the one country principle time and again, but then can Catalonia become a member? It's like this state broadcaster reporter asking whether or not Catalonia can become a member of the WHO. So please continue to reflect on yourself then. Well, Wu Chi-wei, I think the post has been repeatedly played up, alleging that the reporter has asked this interviewee as to whether or not Taiwan can join the WHO. In fact, Taiwan was once an observer in the WHO. And for that colleague to ask these questions, the nature of it by itself, she never pointed out what kind of membership was that. And she never referred to member state. So I think for the RTHK colleague, she was doing this in a very cautious and careful manner. And as you can see, in the light of the epidemic, Taiwanese government, in dealing with the epidemic, it has been praised by many quarters. So this is an exchange of experience. So I cannot see why you can escalate that to the one country level. So that has nothing to do with the way the interview was conducted. She adopted a very cautious attitude. I think this is most unfortunate that the matter has been played up to such an extent. And we've been emphasizing that we will have to enhance or engender a sense of citizenship and national identity that's stated in the Charter. But then the thing is that, if people are not allowed to listen to that more, then that would engender a sense of national identity. So if people are not allowed to listen to those remarks, then they would enhance their national identity. Is that the case? Well, as a public service broadcaster, they also have the duty to ensure that there will be development in our civic society. And of course, you can talk about different approaches. But then as a public broadcaster, in the Charter, it has been stated very clearly that it will have to provide fair and balanced reporting in order to enhance the understanding of the public of the country and also to the world. And in the course of that, that would also nurture the sense of citizenship and national identity amongst members of the public. We agree that if RTHK can only be the mouthpiece of the government, then if that is the case, then RTHK will lose one of the functions that it should play. So what about the question? My question for the director is that should RTHK become the mouthpiece of the government before you can meet the requirements of the Charter? Bureau Director, well, if you look at the Charter, and also in our relationship with RTHK, we have never asked RTHK to do what you said. In the Charter, in particular, in 4A, paragraph 1, as you quoted, but then the most important thing under 4A is that subparagraph 1, 2, 3, including the part that you quoted, that is to promote understanding of our community, our nation. Well, the most important part is about engendering a sense of citizenship and national identity, and also is about how one country, two systems are being implemented. So we will have to look at it comprehensively. We should not just say that because of certain incidents, we should polarize the whole thing. On the one hand, we say that it is acting without any limits or any restriction whatsoever. In fact, the Charter has made it very clear. And Mr. Wu also referred to the post, I'd also like to make it clear. It's not about the length of the program or any other aspects. If there is something in the program that is in breach of an important principle, then RTHK as a government department and as a public service broadcaster, it should respect that, and we do have the duty to remind them of that. Next, Eddie Chu and Ip Kin Yuen, 3 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. One of the controversies is about adhering to the concept of one country principle. The Bureau Director repeatedly said that on several previous occasions, whether it's about the question put to the WHO and also about Taiwan Stories 3, in fact, they have adhered to the one country principle, but then the Bureau Director simply disagreed. So I'd like to ask the Bureau Director to answer first, taking Taiwan Stories as an example. Okay, on the face of it, the Bureau has adopted this approach. That is, there are sensitive words, and also you second guess the motive of the producer, and therefore you question whether or not they have breached the one country principle. Is that what you're doing? So are you suggesting that they should change the name of Taiwan Stories and instead they should call themselves or call the name of, they should entitle the program Taipei, Taiwan, China, or whatever? So because I do not see many criticisms or complaints against that program, so why have you said that? Can I ask the Bureau Director to answer first? Yes, as I've said about the program post, I've already stated my stance on previous occasions. I don't want to repeat that. But then on the 28th of March, that's the same day as a commission program, that's Taiwan Stories 3, so they call Taiwan a country. And subsequently, in fact, RTHK has already taken the initiative to issue a statement and they apologize. They've also taken the program off the shelf. So when this happened simultaneously, it would reflect, as some members have suggested just now, and I'm sure the director would agree, that such situations would need to be faced up to, and they would also have to deal with those very seriously. In particular, Taiwan Stories, well, in response to media inquiries, they issued a statement and they apologized. So we have noticed that given the circumstances, as a department and as a public service broadcaster, while they enjoy editorial independence, they will have to ensure that all their programs would not be breaching some important principles, in particular when it comes to the sovereignty of the state. All right, for the Republic of China, it would not be banned in RTHK, right? As to how they can use it, I'll leave it to the director. So can the director explain in 10 seconds? So can the words Republic of China be used? Because you're suggesting that that's against the concept of one country. Because even for their allies, they would also call Taiwan the Republic of China. Well, Republic of China, and of course Taiwan is part of China, so is part of the territory of China. That's why in some important international organizations, Taiwan would not be using Republic of China in joining those organizations. So you will have to second guess the answer by the Bureau Director. I can only give you 2 minutes each. Ip Kin Yuen and then KK Kwok. 2 minutes only. Okay, just now Regina Ip referred to Catalonia. I think this is a totally inappropriate example because, as I said earlier, because in UNESCO, Macau was actually an associate member. And then in these international organizations, including WHO, is also under the United Nations. Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan, if we join as associate members or observers, then that would not be against the principle of one country, two systems. So on this particular issue, if the Bureau Director has alternative views, please let us know. My question for the Bureau Director is very simple. Last time at the plenary, at the council meeting, I talked about some issues involving RTHK, and I said that RTHK should be able to ridicule the government and so on. But then Junius Ho, who spoke after me, he said that RTHK receives public money and therefore it has to be the mouthpiece of the government. And as Mr. Wu Chi-wai just said, I think many people hold that view. So can the Bureau Director clarify? That is RTHK a mouthpiece of the government, or is it that you welcome them, criticize the government, and ridicule the government? Is that acceptable? So 35 seconds on part one of the question raised by Mr. Ip Kin Yuen. I believe that the way he put it was wrong, because under the United Nations, if you'd like to become a member, it has to be a sovereign state. I'm referring to associate member. But then you refer to Hong Kong and Macau's participation in those organizations. Well, only where we can meet the requirements under the basic law, then we can use Hong Kong-China status in joining those organizations. For example, in the WTO, and then in the UN, and also any organizations or institutions directly under the UN, only sovereign states are allowed to join. Then on the issue of mouthpiece, I think I've already given a very clear answer. And I hope that members would not be confusing these issues. In the Charter, there is no mention of mouthpiece, but then it has pointed out very clearly that as a government department, as a public service broadcaster, it has certain duties and missions and so on. Last one, KK Kwok. All right, RTHK is supported by the majority of the Hong Kong people. I think I don't need to repeat that, because as TV channel, it ranked number 2 in terms of credibility. Well, for many from the loyalist camp, I found their remarks most disappointing. In fact, we should have asked RTHK to adhere to its long-standing policy, so that we'd be looking at the facts and it should be reporting truthfully and honestly. Well, yesterday in Mong Kok, police officers were targeting RTHK. We could see that in the live streaming. And then over half of the public in Hong Kong gave the police 0 score. And up till now, well, the Bureau has been criticizing the RTHK without sparing any efforts. Yes, as a public service broadcaster, I think it's very important that we should maintain this role. I have 2 questions for the Bureau Director. Number 1, would you consider allowing RTHK to keep its editorial independence? That is number 7. That is, it will not be subjected to the influence of commercial, political, and other influences. So, would you be issuing a quotable quote from Edward Yao? That is, you can say Taiwan, but then you must not say anything about the Republic of China. So are you trying to do that? Well, I think you have taken things out of context, because the government supports RTHK in complying with the charter of RTHK. It's not a part of that charter. You refer to para 7. But then still you will have to look at the whole charter, because it's signed by RTHK itself, and the director has been telling me that all colleagues of RTHK would be adhering to the charter. So I hope that will be the way that we view RTHK, whether or not you try to criticize it or commend it. So is it that well, they cannot mention Republic of China? Well, I've already stated my stance. I don't want you to misinterpret it. Okay, because of our time constraint, we will have to adjourn our meeting. So next meeting will be on 8th of June.